Daf Pei Hey. Thank you. Ah, schwach. Ja, vorige gaat wel den heel en malach wel schakel nemen door. You guys didn't go to the miner today? That's still learning now, man. Okay, leaving them by HaMikdash. We're just going back quickly to read because we read very little last week. Leaving the HaMikdash, never was the HaMikdash, Shechante Betoichem, Velum Dvorim, Shemikar, Binyan Abayis, Oisem by Kodesh, V'Kodesh, Shekadoshim, Lifnei Kodesh, Mokamecha, V'Nikra Ulam, Avshloshim Nikra Hechel. Voice machitz echad zav v'lahechler achoykim menu kein kale achotze. Shoyev ha-migbar v'kol ha-mukchov machitz azu kein chotzer oil moed hu azor v'hakol nikra migdash. Voice v'migdash ha-kelim ha-ktuvim ba-toira onem ha-kodesh ha-kadoshim ha-noire v'shulchem mizbeach ha-pnimi ba-kodesh mizbeach v'chitzim ba-azor. The medrash, the first base ha-migdash, the kohenim gedolim or tzadikim, and they used to have the string that was tied to them, and they would come into the Kodesh HaKadoshim. If they saw Yud Kei Vav Kei and top of the Aron Kodesh, they knew that it'll be a good year. And if they didn't see the Yud Kei Vav Kei on top of the Aron Kodesh, what should they do? They would pull the string, and the Kohanim outside would know there's a trouble. So they would go like this, like everyone would start crying, and everyone would start in the tefillos, everyone would start being mispalel b'chozik until he saw the Yud Kei Vav Kei. Can you imagine? When he would see the Yud Kei Vav Kei, it's okay, fine. You guys could stop screaming, take it easy, it's fine. But if he didn't see the Yud Kei Vav Kei, he would give a shlep azoi. That Echav HaKohanim Mebachutz would know to tell the Olam, okay, you got to start davening now. Ace, the mazakt in English, ASAP. In capital letters. Yeah. Yes. There's two things that stand out very much in the Beis HaMikdash. The Rambam says the Mikdash wasn't the Misher, it was the Maila Hor. So you went in, then you walked up as Noshim was Shova, and then you had 15 steps. An Amma, the Levim would stand there. There was the plaza, the floors were straight. The floors were straight, but Medarga Ladarga, there were steps. Medarga Ladarga, there were steps. The Rebbe says, because they could have made it straight. They could do whatever they want. They spent billions of dollars to build. You want to straighten out an area, you straighten out an area. Embaya. That was not the thing. It was done by Mechuvent. And he goes into the Beis HaMikdash, he goes in Kedusha. Goes up, walks up in Kedusha. Goes up in Kedusha. He goes up in Kedusha. It's interesting, I noticed this year when I was doing the Rambam, that the Rambam says you have the Kodesh and the Kodesh HaKadoshim, and in front of that they made the Heichel, but the Heichel they made like this. Kodesh HaKadoshim, Kodesh, and this was Ulam, right? Like this. But the Rambam says in Perek Aleph, in the Binyan Beis HaMikdash, Hilchot Beis HaBechira, that it was built like a ari, like a lion. Because a lion, if you see his face, the lion is his face goes out as a wide. This one we have here on the table, Adam. Open the window. Oh, you want to open the window? Sure. Nice. It is nice outside. Finally, we got some rain. Broke up the heat. Right. So I was thinking when I was learning the Rambam this year, that it's symbolic. The Indian of the it was the that was built in a way just like you walk, you go up, you walk, you go up, you walk, you go up, and finally on the top, the base of Mikdash was in the shape of a line. Okay, let's go. We're page Pei Hey, opposite of page 168. Mikdash Rakelim. To understand the Mikdash in the Kelim below is the Iker Kavanas of Mikdash, who Lias Kido Yalakus Yisrael. The main purpose in building the base of Mikdash was there should be a revelation, a godly revelation by Jews. The Shalos says it should say V'shachanti V'soichoi. V'soichoi means every Jew, every Jewish house, every Jewish life should be a Mikdash for the Eibishter. V'kachim Tzavino Lasas Kedugma Seder Ishtalshlus. We were told to build a house for the Eibishter like the Seder Ishtalshlus. Animsach Ma'atzmas. Animsach Ma'atzmas Ein Soif. Kimavur B'mishnas Chesidim. Says in the Mishnah Chassidim, Derech Brias Oilam, Ketzat. How did the Eibishter create the world? Oireins of Tzimtzem Ketzat. Oireins of Tzimtzem Oire. Pina Mokum Shavam Cholz Dodem. Mokum Ogel. The Eibishter saw that couldn't be a world, so he took his infinite light and he squeezed it with a circle. He squeezed it to the sides and he left a hollow space in the middle. Moshch Betoiche, and then after he had a hollow space. It was mitzamtzim. He pushed away the light, but in a ring, and he left a hollow space that was round. He drew into it kav or dak. He drew into it a small light, which was just a line, a linear line. Shall oil rochak ma'at me'oid insof ubrid to oid heir ogel sheni ad asar yigulim sheheim kesaf ochum bina. That the Eibishter Kilu pushed away the light because there was too much light. He left a hollow space, but then he put in there 10 straight lights, 10 lights that shine straight, and 10 lights that go round. And the first round light was closest to the original ring, and then there's rings that go further in. That's what it says. Mishnah Chassidim. Mishnah Chassidim was Rabbi Manyo Chayriki, who the Tzemach Tzedek says the Alter Rebbe told him that every word written in the Mishnah Chassidim is from Darizal. Darizal lived 500 years ago. However, all of Klal Yisrael accept everything, every word of Darizal like Kodesh Kadoshim. Darizal, every word Darizal tells us is accepted by Klal Yisrael. That Darizal's Yortzeit was this week. Darizal's Yortzeit was Dari Achai, Hey Menachem. One of the stories that told that about Arizal, there was a couple living in Yerushalayim. The family name was Ashkenazi. You know why? They came from Ashkenaz.
There are a lot of Sfaradim, the last name is Ashkenaz.
Yeah, I know. It's true. And they were an older couple. Every single day, he would daven. After everyone finished, he would open the Aron Kodesh and he would daven because they never had a child. They never had a child. And one day, when he turned around, someone put his hand on his shoulder and asked him why he's crying. He said, because they're an older couple. And they never had a child.
Getting emotional?
Huh?
Are you getting emotional?
This morning, I took my daughter to camp, and there was a kid I used to learn with him when I was a boch in yeshiva. And I haven't seen him now for 30 years more. And his daughter, they were going on the bus together. He's living in California, so his father was a very choshev Rav. His father was the Rav in Montreal, Rav Fegelstock. So I knew he was a Ben Zikunim, but I asked him, how old was your father when he had you? So he said, my father had me at the age of 56. But I was lucky. His father Taka passed away last year. My father lived to 98.
Wow.
So my father was there for, he was there. He was there. It's funny, you're like, Nebuch, a kid is born to a father. I was excited to see him because I used to learn with I haven't seen him for years, and I see him take his daughter to the bus. Anyway, back to the story.
That's Charles.
Huh?
Charles, 86-year-old.
Yeah.
That's really developed children. Last one.
Huh?
Last child.
His last child was 50. No, Fegelstruck also he had this kid, and his older brother is Ein Aroich. His older brother could be his father.
Oh, so it wasn't.
Huh?
Sure, it was 40.
Wow.
So it wasn't the only kid.
No. It was a
Oh.
Ben Zikunim. I think they didn't have kids for years after that. They had like 4 or 5 kids, and then years, and then at the age of 56, he had a boy.
Almost 8 years again.
8 years? Wow. It's like Beis Hashem.
My father also and my older brother were 8 years apart.
Uh-huh. Okay, so that is how the story was. His father was very old. His father Taka didn't have any children, and
My father was
Jim.
58 when I was born.
huh?
Well, my father was born 1920. I was born in 58, right? No, he was 30, 38. When was he born? Were you? I'm born 58. He was born 20.
That could be, yeah,
The youngest.
yeah. So Darizel, his father, was davening for a child, and Eliono, he came and told him, "You're going to have a child, but you have to wait for me to do the bris." Kachave. He had a child, and he waited. Everyone's waiting and waiting and waiting. When he saw Darizel, sorry, his son is Darizel. He saw Elionov. He started the bris. And Elionov, he told him the name of the child, and Elionov, he told him that this child is going to will light up the world with the light of the Torah. His father was Taka, an old man, and his father passed away when he was a young child. That's why they ended up in Egypt. They ended up in Egypt because his mother couldn't support him, and he was a little boy. And they said when he was 3 years old, he already was learning Gemara. It was like unbelievably brilliant child.
You'll start on fine, but you have to wait. We don't know.
This time that someone sees. Yeah, now you know, you see? If you see someone doesn't start in time, I can't wissen.
He didn't grow up in Egypt.
Yeah, that Israel grew up
What
in Egypt.
age?
He only came to Israel the last 3 or 4 years of his life.
I never understood this because what's the koich abchira? Person experiences the Italian to Russian, but then a kid has to choose. But when a person's born knowing this child's going to light up the world, this child is going to be a.
Oh, yes, Bechira. Yes, Bechira.
How we should have such a bechira.
Anyway, yeah, exactly. Maybe it will take away a little bit of their Bechira. Arizal was a little child when they moved to Egypt. And one of his rabbeim was Rabbi Tzalal Ashkenazi. And I always love to tell this because I think people don't realize, even though that Arizal to us gives us Torah Shabbat Peh of Torah Sekshin Beichai, Torah Sanista, the hidden Torah. But at a young age, what was he doing? Learning Torah by Tzal Ashkenazi. Together they wrote the Shita Mekubetzes. The Shita Mekubetzes is on the Shiva Shemesechtes, and it's a digest of the Rishonim. They had a tremendous amount of Kisvei Yad in Egypt. They were, the famous Gniza that we found 100 years ago, 150 years ago, stuck in Egypt. They had tremendous amount. It was a real hub. His uncle was a very rich man, and he spent money. The Rizal's uncle, Rizal's uncle took him as a son-in-law. Listen, I'm supporting you, so you'll marry my daughter.
Did he write anything in Arabic?
And married his cousin.
He married his cousin, right? Grew up in the same house. He grew up in his uncle's house. His uncle decided, why not marry my daughter? Keep it.
Good guy.
Good guy.
Did you write anything in
After he got
Arabic?
married, Rizal never wrote anything. Besides what we know, that the
Chaim
Shita
Vital
Mekub,
wrote
right,
stuff on
but the Nigla he wrote, because he wrote, it said that he wrote together with his Rebbe the Shita Mukabetzes. Today, even till today, in the yeshivas, we learn Shita Mukabetzes. We learn Shita Mukabetzes a little less today than we used to. Why? Because Shita Mukabetzes is a digest of all the Rishonim that didn't exist. But now, in the past 50 years, we've already gotten from different libraries around the world Chidusha Yashba, Chidusha Ritva, Chidusha Ramban, Chidusha Ram, Chidusha Rosh. And this is all the basis for the Shita Mukubetzes. So less people learn today Shita Mukubetzes, but still Shita Mukubetzes was the safer to learn together with most Masechtas. The Masechtas that have Shita Mukubetzes.
We know that Chaim Vital wrote a lot of stuff from the Arizal. Did you write in Arabic? Because you were surprised.
I don't know. I don't
Well,
think they
so
wrote.
nothing about it.
I don't think they wrote. I think Bishita they wrote in Lashon Kodesh. They probably spoke Arabic. They spoke in but the Arizal himself, a short time after he got married, one of the things he started to do was to speak only B'Lashon HaKodesh. He spoke only B'Lashon HaKodesh, and with the reshus of his wife, he had a little bungalow on the Nile, and he would leave the house Motzei Shabbos, and he would sit himself in the house with the permission of his wife all Shabbos. He'd come back home only for Shabbos, and he would talk only in Lashon Kodesh. He got married right after his bar mitzvah.
He passed away very young.
In a bungalow, yeah, a bungalow on the Nile.
He passed away very young.
Very young, right?
38. Right?
Yeah.
That was the same. He did so much. His father was Ashkenazi.
Yeah, it was Ashkenazi. Yeah. So, yeah, sure. We know that they have
On the
children
weekends.
because he was with them on the weekends. He only took care of the kids on the weekends. His wife agreed to it. That was part of the deal. No, because we know. How do we know he had children? He had a daughter that married the son of the Beis Yosef. So we know for sure that he had a daughter. So the words of that Izal.
He wasn't secluded. I'm sure his kids came to visit the Lord.
Could be they came visit him in the bungalow.
Is that like your kids?
Yeah, exactly. Same thing.
The bungalow start from there, from the Arizal.
Yeah. Okay, let's continue reading.
The first mountains.
Huh?
The first mountains are
Right. So Shashgocha Pratis, now we're learning the Torah of the Arizal. Let's go back 2 lines. Before the Mishnah Siddim has explained the Mitzvah Siddim and B'riyas Ha'olam, the way of the Eibush that created the world. Kate said, the Eibush saw there wasn't a possibility even for the world to stand. So the Eibush that contracted his life, he pushed it in the side. Upon a makim shavam chol tzdadim, he pushed the light away. If there'd be so much light shining in the world, in other words, so much of godly revelation, there wouldn't be a world that would feel separate. There would be nothing. There would be only godliness. So the Eibush dimmed the light, pushed it away. He made a circle, a black circle, and he pulled into it kav oir dak, who also ogul, achar shel oir rochak maat minus up it into oir hegel ogul sheni ad asari gulav sheim ketzachach mabina. Cheneim boim yutzvid is the yosher ad kan dvorev, mesechas album mesechas zvroim ein sham. Here at dvorev, to explain this. Yedua the oir apnimi hu oir agila l'kus b'chol olam l'fi erdker, v'oir makif hu ma shenisha behelam v'loi boli de gilui, shu soivev b'chol tzad b'shaveh. Okay. That there's 2 types of lights. One is a light that's linear, a light that goes straight, and the one is that's surrounding. Oira soiviv, oira mamalo, oir pnimi, oir makif. V'rotz HaKadosh Baruch Hu liis l'dir b'taftonim fidug mesreishis ha'ishtal shlos ma'atzim ha'sayin insoiv. The Eibishter wanted that his dwelling place in this world should reflect the beginning of Ishtal Shlos. L'kach tziv alas ha-mishkan kedugma zeh. He made the Mishkan should be reflective of the Ishtalshlus, while derech the Beis Elam, the Beis HaMikdash, was similar to the Mishkan. Hainu Yedis Vakroshim Sheba Mikdash and Dugmas Eres Makifim Elyonim Shalamayla Matzilus or Makifim Sheba Atzilus. There is the Yedis, there is the Kroshim, which is like the lights are called Makif. Vakelim and Kamoy Pninis Oil Pnimi, and then there is the Kalim, which are called Oil Pnimi. Mishtalshlum and Akashim Pchinas Gilukus Mamash B'chol Oilim. And it says in the Orim and Adatim, there was a miracle that the Eibush revealed himself in the Orim between the two Kruvim. Mizbeach, there was a miracle that was an Eish going down from heaven. First Beis Hamikdash was like a lion, a second Beis Hamikdash looked like a dog. Al derech zam gam menoire edesi leboy olam sheshchina shedem Yisrael with the Neira Maravi. We spoke about it last week with the Shulchan Shabbat Hafam. There was a miracle that the bread was always hot, and we spoke about it last week. كأن تمونة سماكة إلا في أيفن أبني שיסתף ממנו על דרך משל. השפוע גילוי שכל לפי אופן רוצן הגילוי, כן יהיה המקיף בתפילה. לקח הויו תמונה סיריז והקרושם תמונה פרוטס כך וכך, כמו אורך יריה כך וכך, כדי בקרושם לשטח לסו הגילוי אור הפנימי, על ידי הקרבונס לפי אופן הרוצן הגילוי כן צורך ליסם שוחס המקיפים בתפילה כניס כליל. Just like if you have a dot and you want to surround it, so it depends how big this dot is. If this dot is bigger, then the line around it has to get bigger. So the Rebbe explains in a Maimer that there is a lot of times in Kabbalah we talk about Makiv, the light that surrounds, the awesome light that goes around, that surrounds the Pnimi, the light that penetrates in the internal part of the world. So in Makif, sometimes we have what's called Keser, the crown, and sometimes they call Golgalta, the skull, just like the skull surrounds the brain. What's the difference between Golgalta and Keser? It's like that's not the same thing. Golgalta, sometimes we say there's the soul. Then if there's a will, there's a way, right? If there's a will, there's a way. The person has a strong rotzen, they're going to get something done. If they really, really want it, they're going to have the power and energy to get it accomplished. But the rotzen is a revelation of the nefesh. When you want this accomplished, it means that the or pnimi has a certain chashivus, and therefore I want this to happen. This want, even though rotzen is usually considered or makif, a surrounding light, as we'll explain soon, but it surrounds exactly this point, and this point is relevant to the circle, and therefore the circle surrounds this point, as opposed to the nefesh itself, which maybe this little point is insignificant to the nefesh. That's the difference between when we say keser, the crown, or when we say golgalta, skull. Well, I think we'll understand a little better as we go along.
And what is this something facing Mikdash?
Because we said that the Beis HaMikdash was like Makiv Golgalta. It's like the surrounding, like the rounding, but not just a big, awesome surrounding light. It's like the skull, which targets this area. And it's not just a big makif; it's the smaller makif. That's why the kroshim, the idis, had a certain measurement, and the measurement was finite, and it was surrounding the kalim inside the Beis Hamikdash. How much space you need? That's how big the kloim were. Makif, to understand the makif, pnimiyim shneim tzorich liz b'blis oilamas. Cholam shachas l'kuz l'choyr makif shikar agilu de'or pnimi. Because the main thing is to have an oil panimium came out to Elas Bamakif. Who cares about the Makif? Omnam Inyan Mavur, the Mitzvas HaYichud. There's an earlier mitzvah called Mitzvas HaYichud. Inyan Beis Minam Shachasel Shemishneim Magia or Achayis Loyalness. From the two lights together, there's Achayis Loyalness. A film called Nivre Benivre Mefrat. Zesh Kosa Kolash Chofetz Hashem also. Who Bechinas HaMakif. The Kisib Bedvar Hashem Shemayim Nasu Bechinas HaPnimi. This is really a Maimon of the Alter Rebbe. The Alter Rebbe asks that there's a contradiction. On one hand, we say the Eibush created the world through Chofetz, through his will, through his Rotzen. On the other hand, we say through Dibur. So which one is true? Is it through Dibur or through Rotzen? The Alter Rebbe says both are true. If the Eibush created the world only through Dibur, everything would be so finite, it would be hard to crack through and to bring a godly revelation into everything. Everything would be so coarse, you wouldn't find the godliness in it. If the Eibush created the world just with the Rotzen, just with his Rotzen, it would be very easy to find godliness everywhere. There would be no contest. And the Eibush created everything in this world has an oil makif and an oil pnimi. It has the mala and soiva. So the awesomeness of Hashem is everywhere equally. So if you really look hard, you'll find it. On the other hand, everything was created through dibur, which is very, very finite and very defined. And therefore, it's not easy to find it right away on the surface. You can't just scratch the surface and find it right away. On the other hand, the awesomeness of Hashem is everywhere. Therefore, the Eibishter made that there should be the balance, that everything He created should have dibur and everything should have chayfetz, His rotzen. Hashem nisbar shemakev hamachayev gamkev v'adarabu ikir ela she'enim izgal ba'nibra. That the truth is the makev is also giving a sustenance. Adarabah, he's the ikir chayes, but he's not revealed. The makiv is everywhere, but he's concealed, and he's everywhere equally. It'll be very different the way the pnimi is revealed in the head or in the leg. In other words, there is much more of a revelation of the energy of the soul and the brain than in the foot. The awesome light, which is makiv, does not get split and sliced and diced. It gets there's bigger here and there's smaller there. These things are really connected because in the pnimi is a vessel to get the light. So this is a bigger vessel, it gets more light. The smaller vessel gets less light. And therefore the light itself also, over here it's more and over here it's less. And that's the difference of makif and pnimi. When the neshama comes into the guf, there's a makif and a pnimi. A pnimi kama horetz hanefesh b'moich v'leiv. Kovid shehem haoretz shonis manefesh lafit chunas cheluka kelim hamoyach min alev min hakovid. Just like the nefesh gets revealed in different parts of the body in a different way. L'deros lev v'gam b'chol ha'avorim. Kama hayad v'aregel lafit chunas kol echa v'echa kacha mutz b'chayis hanefesh. Ki haseichel shoyde b'moyach v'midas b'leiv atnur b'avorim chitzonim ha'idei adam shebekovid. V'ine haseichel b'moyach hu b'bchinas giluy she'askola mahusa murgeshes b'moyach. V'hamoyach memula mamish memuhusa. Just like a keli is filled with water. There is a relationship between the vessel and the light that goes into the vessel when it comes for a brain, for example, which is a koyach pnimi. The brain is a very small part of the organ. It's like a sponge sitting right under your skull and weighs how much? From 15 to 20 pounds. That's it. And it takes like 50 or 60% of your energy. Your brain eats up. And they find that not all the brains are exactly the same. They some people are unbelievable brilliant people who allowed that they should open their brain after their death. And you see this different. It's not, all the brains were not created equal. So, but it's a piece of butter. It's a piece of sponge that weighs 18 pounds and is a watery, mushy piece. And, you would think that all brains were created equal, but it's not. But seichel is a conceptual thing. And this brain of ours, which weighs 18 to 20 pounds, is like, a piece of butter you put in your hand. It's but it's not true. It based on the makeup of the brain is how a person understands.
Retains the information.
Yeah. So we're going to say later that there is a koyach, which is makif, which is koyach harotza. When a person has a strong will, the will of a person is equal in the brain and the toe. The person wills to keep on going. That same will is in the brain and in the toe. But the koyach hanefesh, which animates the brain, is a different koyach than the koyach that animates the toe. It's a very different. And therefore, the Eibishter made that the brain The physical 18-pound sponge that holds the seichel and the toe are built from a different thing. It's a very different. It's built from a different stuff because there is a relationship between the brain, the physical sponge, the 18-pound piece of butter, and the seichel. There's a relationship there. And the rotzen and the brain, there isn't a relationship. It's just sheer will that a person wills himself to keep on going. And the will and the seichel do not have a relationship. And that's like the difference of a or makif and a or pnimi. The or pnimi is the koyach of the soul to understand. And there is a relationship between the koyach of seichel and the physical 20-pound piece under our skull. But between the person's rotzen, the will, the person has a strong will to do a marathon, to learn a whole Masechta Gemara, to be up a whole night in Shavuos, and
that doesn't come from a toe.
In the head and the toe, it's the same thing. Person has a strong will to push himself. It's the same thing. Here and there, it's the same thing.
Not from the brain.
Well, the brain controls. I mean, that's where it's but it's a different thing, according to what he says here in the mind. Let's read it inside. The makeup of the Geshem HaMoyach, the taken seichel. Al derech zeh gam adibur bepeh v'apeh gashmi memula umurgish moisis adibur aruchnim al derech zeh amidas belei v'atnu b'yadayim v'hilach b'raglayim שידוע שיש גידם ברגל לפי אופן הכבוסים hier תנו בסרגל להילוך כזהו חייס הנפש ומסלבש בהם וכוח ההילוך כמו במזה שחייס הנפש ויבורם ובגילו גמא וזה נהיה סלבשס אוי פנימי בכלי שבגילו that's like a oir pnimi when the light of the vessel has a relationship and the light is revealed in the vessel fisha keli musugelis lakable v'hi me'ena oir v'dugmasim hama shere lo yahalach hayad the hand doesn't walk and the foot doesn't write. Why? Because the Eibishter made that the physique of the hand and the foot and the heart and the brain are different. Hamakiv is different. Hamakiv b'masha roim sheyesh ispashtus achayis min nefesh v'guf liyis evonim espalim mimenu. Afa b'kein enena begolu liyis muhuz golu aleim v'gam meir l'kulim b'signan eshel b'liyis chalkus. It's the rotzen is revealed in every place. It's not more here, less there. V'u rotzen ki im onu roitzim kasher yitza lifshet yode v'ragla yifshet miyad kerega. If a person wants to move his hand, so he moves it immediately. V'im yitza l'kavetz yikavetz. Miyad v'loiser tzoyim. Zeh moifesh rotzen melubish boy v'nimtza beregel mamish. It must be there. Ki ilo hoye metzius rag v'moyach. If the command says it was only in the brain and not throughout the body, v'masha evorim n'shtoin l'tzoyim k'mei spashos akivetz aregel uderech v'mshochet shenimtzach merotzen shel moyach l'regel atzes kein im kein ha'etzorech li yeshiuz ma ma'loiser rotzen lifshet aregel. Should have taken some time for the directions to get there. At sheregel tispasha v'poel k'dei meshach hiluch. המשוך זה רוצם המויח ברגל, ולא באפשר ליס מיד כרגל. ומאחד שונו רואים שבוי ברגל, הלוי זה רוצם להפשט הרגל, תספשט הרגל ממש מוכרח, כשהרוצם נמצא ברגל ממש, ואין צורך לשי הזמן, באמס הוא כן, כי ידוע שיש אורקים וגידי המויח, שמספשתם בכל האיבורים. There's a certain type of veins that don't carry blood, ואין בהם דם. It's like funny, it's מצדק טוב. What we call today nerves. But to them, it was like a chiddush, that there is these thin things that go throughout your body and they're not carrying blood. What are they carrying? They're carrying signals from the brain. They're not carrying blood, but they're carrying signals from the brain. There is, before we go, hine gufa, there is the way the brain affects the hand. A person is an artist, and they train themselves to make $1 million paintings that they sell. It takes a very long time, even the greatest artists, for their brain to train their hand how to make the art or how to create a sculpture. It takes, because that's a chayis pnimi, and therefore it takes time. But then there is the or makif, which when the hand says move, when the brain says move, the hands move. It doesn't take a long time. That's like, so the difference. So the way the artist brain trains his hand is or pnimi. The way the artist tells his hand to just move to get him a cup of seltzer, that's makif. The koyach with the tnua is shekvarim b'chanim mekoyd and malubish badam shebeiver hu mislabe and the v'chil v'shtir. That taka comes from the blood, and that's a chayis pnimi, and comes from achil v'shtir. Mshek narotzon chayis nafshi levad. Memeno lo yove gufa tnua. Ella, it's not the gufa tnua. Ella she'oifen tnuasai, the command center. While yedei she'akoyach hamaniya shebeiver maniya k'fi l'tzoyne v'lo yishana tafkidi kisus l'gabe roichvoy. Just like the sus has koyach to walk, but once he has a roichev, the sus goes with the directions of the roichev. So really every Eved has a chayis pnimi, but there is also a command center and nerve system throughout the body, and that's like a sus v'roichvoy. The hand is the sus, the legs are the sus, and the roichvoy is like the command center, the koyach harotzen that sends the message through the reins, through the nerve system. The gufa pula or the chayes amuse kvar ba'ever manefesh. Hamalumish badam. Vu begolui. Aval rotzen eine begolui. Afal pish yeshne b'chol evorim. That's the difference of koyach pnimi and koyach makif. He's giving a mashal to understand how you have simultaneously, just like he said in the Mishnah Siddim, simultaneously in the world, Eibishter revealed 10 levels of makif and 10 levels of pnimi, and they work simultaneously. So he's giving a mashal that you have the koyach atnu in the hands and in the feet that are there. But then you have the command center that gives out commands. That's the difference of makim and pnimi. All the differences of makif and the pnimi come back to the same nakuda. By the makif, there isn't a relationship of oid and kli. Like we said, there's a relationship of the brain and the spiritual and intellect. Ella, the pchinas helam, by the koyach makif, the revelation and the relationship is in the way of helam. And kin yochlis mea beregel al derech shemea berosh. A person could have a very strong will to win the marathon, the same type of will to learn a daf gemara. There isn't that in the brain there's less rotzen or more rotzen than the foot. They're equally. When a person has a strong rotzen, there's an equal gilui of rotzen in the brain or in the leg. But in the koyches hanefesh, the way it's revealed in the brain and the leg, for the koyach pnimi is very different. Mashenkem ba'oretz hanefesh shemei b'slapshes pnimi b'pchinas nefesh ruach neshama b'moich b'lev koved or b'pchinas tzimtzumah b'pchinas ischalkulus or v'shemei b'pchinas pnimi kinis kilil. So therefore, this is a nice mashal to understand the difference of makif and pnimi. The Eibishter created the world. The Eibishter wanted there should be a revelation, everything pchinas makif and pchinas pnimi. And to understand a little better how the rotzen is in the foot, but it's not like the brain is toifus in the oira seichel. Kamoi mara lover, like the color white. The Siddur says that white is atzmis adover, ve'ein adover noisef. And the Siddur likes the mashal of white. Because why Chassidus like the mashal of white? Because The Alter Rebbe liked the mashal of kalim. So he said, like, if you have 10 kalim and you have glass, tinted glass, one is blue and one is red. The water is the same water, but here is the glass shines. So here the light goes through in a stained glass window. This light looks like it's red, and this is yellow, and this is blue, but really it's the same. So that was a nice mashal out there, but like very much. Understand that the oil is pashut, and it comes through the 10 spheres. So this looks red, and this looks white, and this looks yellow, and this looks purple. Alter Rebbe, on that scale, Alter Rebbe liked this idea of a mashal that every color is a superimposed thing. But white, even though it's a color, which is color means revelation, it's a character, it's something.
So lack of color. It's lack of color.
Yeah, but it's really it's on the one hand is color.
It pays over color.
There's a sefer Sinas Ayin which I mentioned last night. It's a sefer about 200 pages. This guy was Avil the Yid. He was a professor and he was Talmud Chokam. And he writes about the Alter Rebbe and the Vilna Gaon. And first he has the first section of the sefer things that he doesn't, amazing. They were ahead of their times, certain mathematical issues that, how did they figure out? How did they ever figure out? No, Chas v'Shalom. No, Stama Hamoritz, Apikoidis. No, Simas Ayin. It's a sefer called Simas Ayin. A guy lived 100 years ago. He was a real Talmud Chochem and a real scientist. And Yiddish Shemayim, it sounds like he was a Yiddish Shemayim. I don't know Mamish, but it sounds like he was a film Yid.
You picked a weird subject.
Yeah, he wanted any scientific subject that was like the Alter Rebbe or the Gra dealt with. He shows that their time, how is it that the Alter Rebbe has a formulation of how do you figure out wherever is Mizrah? And there's how did the Alter Rebbe know? And it was something that scientifically was figured out later, or even if it was in his generation, it was not yet widely known. But then he has a section in the back of the paper where he argues and things that he thinks that they were off the mark, that they thought they knew everything, but they didn't know everything. One of them is Gov and Lovin, the color white. Alter Rebbe says that every other color is superimposed. But white is Gov and Atzmi. White is Gov and Atzmi. He says scientifically not true. White is the most difficult color to produce. China stole the technology from America of how to make white. Because they're Ganoven. Chinese are Ganoven, by the way. They don't care. Anyway, so the funny thing about but I don't understand this professor, that's a problem sometimes, professor. The Alter Rebbe is using a mashal. First of all, the Alter Rebbe is just trying to give a mashal. He's giving a mashal. Hello? You know what mashal is? Story about the father and the son. They went out fishing. It's a mashal. It's not about the fish. It's not about the salmon or the trout. It's about what we're learning in the Bible. So, hello, mashal, mashal means that there's a story and then there's an imshal. Doesn't have to, the Alter Rebbe is just trying to, what's in the Geya? Besides, the Alter Rebbe, if you look in the Chassidus, whenever they talk about Gov and Lavan, like one of the places it says, Kemoy Kristal. Why do you mean Kemoy Kristal? Why say Kemoy Kristal? Because he wants to say it's not the white that you think this. Gov and Lavan ends as the Lavan. It doesn't, the Alter Rebbe didn't mean Lavan this. He meant like crystal, which is something which Kamat has no color. Kamat has no color. Clear. He just in Lashon Kodesh, there isn't a word for clear, there isn't a word for crystal, and there isn't crystal clear. So he used the word Lavan. Anyway, bottom line, it's a mashal. Alter Rebbe wants to say that there is something, most things have a certain characterization. As a color, it's color superimposed. And then there is Lavan, whatever Lavan is, Lavan Arami, or this type of Lavan, or crystal clear, that there is some type of revelation, but it's Gov and Atzmi. And that's what the Alter Rebbe uses as a mashal for the idea of Rotz.
Lavan is not pure. We call it pure.
Ava became Emuhus and Nitzvas, or Kamay Mara Lavan. Shuhu Atzmi is different. Yeah, that It's a color, but it's the color before all colors.
Color, but not a color.
Yeah,
That's how different of a color it is.
you could put every color onto it, but he's the mother of all colors. Who atzmis a dover? Vein dover noisef. In a guf dover alav in the muhus, v'dover b'shetach. Mashenken amar alav in ein tefes mokem. In ein nitfes. Av b'shesh mecholchel ki adover. Shem chator l'chalokim. Dakim etzu alav. Mach shua atzmis v'tol v'tivis. Shenken agvonim and its boim are superimposed. They're not atzmos and they're not tivis. Ava became a nitfus zulos davar maluben alei lachom etziz davar im kol ze ein nitfus und kamoike in a rotzen sheyesh no beregel aber ein nitfus schenken wir per nitfus. A nimshel kol ze here it's a nimshel. Da boy says nicht gewen a mod, it's nicht gewen a toide, it's gewen a moshel. A nimshel because ze la mailo bepkhines mal kam sevkolam. Mal kam khais khais leki Mesgal b'chol davar lefi erke v'der klal bria tzira sir gam ke gimel chaluk madreges k'may moyach leve kovid. There is memalakolam, a light which is tailored for every level based on that level, and there's a relationship over there between art and keli, and it's bigger here and smaller there. V'hine gimel b'chaluk madreges k'may moyach leve kovid anal shebenefesh shebebria mirim v'chachmosay benosav v'daite. Shel oin soif shub kamo yasechel shebemayach ze inyan ganeden ha'elyon shenashamas nenim aziv shashchina shu ba'olam ha'briya. In Bria, there's more of a gil of the Eibish's moiche. Be yitzira me'irim midoisav shemayin tzav baruch kamo yiruach belev ba'olam ha'malachim shavadasam ava ve'yira and also some neshamas v'basiya ha'nefesh avoidas b'maisa cholol lefi erka orazu hi begil imamish. There's a relationship of mimala because the Oid and the Keli have a relationship. Kamoy, Chamad, Bebriya, Ad, Shanashamas, Nanimas, Agosam, Oid, and Sof, Sham, Bebriya. Achein, Amidus, Beyitzira, Ad, Shamalachim, Oimrim, Beyira, Ve'ava, Kodesh, Kodesh, Kodesh. Achein, Basiya, Islapshas, Chais, Al-Kuz, Bechol, Nibiru, Bepnim, Yusay, Shekol, Medaber, Ve'chayis, Bechinas, Chay, Ve'areze, Bechinas, Simtsum, V'Ischalkus. In Memalakolam, it's tailored for every level. And more here, in Bria, less there in Yitzira, and even less in Yitzia. And the Ratzon is equal everywhere. On the other hand, it's behelim everywhere. Sherotzon b'chinas helim, amakiv kol ha'avonim. V'kol makom al piv yetzeyu, al piv yavoyu, v'maslabish v'nimtza b'chol ha'avonim, kol betelim etzloi. When we say a lot of times, we think it's awesome, but it's not here. No, it's here. It's the most present. Like the sus and the roichve animates him. From the Boshim Bekelim, the Yutzvira, the Biyash, however, in Bepchinas Makiv has the most control over it. Vein Betelim Gabri Tzoni is Borich. Sheshoyled them, Lisa Shpor Kiritzoni. K'moshe Rotzim Ba'odam Mania Moiche V'Ragli. Lasher Yechpetz, Yato, Balode Lo Yozizu. Kein Rotzim El Yemeir B'Chabad, Ameir V'Briya Manik, Ashposim Kiritzoni, V'Chin Batzir, V'Atzim, Bepchinas Makiv V'Helim. Shoyne bepchinas gilu kama echad bebriya. V'kol makom ikar apula mimenu val yodei commissioners borliu. On the one hand, the will is nothing. The will is everything. The will of the person, the nerve system, animates everything. The brain has his own system, and the hand has his own system. The leg has his own system. On the other hand, Eibishter made that there should be a nerve system that's a central command that controls everything. So there is a chayis and pinas mamal kalam and everything. And there's a chayes of Chinasoviv Kalamim. That's the ikara pool of everything. That's why the Eibishter made two types of lights, Igulim and Yoshev. So gam ke nikra l'makifim of Pnimim. Shemakifim and makifim kol ha'olam is ke'echad. In every olam there is the Igulim and there is the Yoshev. Shel Igulim da'ak makifim liutzvidis the Adam Kadm. Liutzvidis da'asiyah ke'echad. Chinasoviv kol ha'olam shava mash v'kotem v'godol. Rotzna Elyon and Maklal nikra Adam Kadm Adam V'briya. And then there is Atikim of Aracham from Adam the Yitzira, and which is on a big scale, Atzilus, Nikra Adam the Asiyah, B'chinas Nefesh Ruch, on a bigger scale, these three levels. Ve'gulam Soviv l'kulam ke'echad, V'pnimia Yosher, HaMishtal Shlom ke'echad, B'kulam Mekelim Shoynim, K'v'abiyah Naran, V'zeh Yuvim, Bezek Shuvim, Anirim Kesoisim, Zeh Kosev, V'echavemim, Alapalot Tzkvoiding. V'targam Yeziv Yekore, that the Eibishter is only a ray of light, which is a very small. It's not a static. וסויבל דל דלמס כאחד. ועל כן אומר שמיים ואורץ בשבוע אחס. אבל אורץ שבבחינס יגילוי אין אלא בבחינס כבודו זיו יקודם במלך העולמים. So that's the difference between the two psukim. Psukim, one pasuk says, Animoli, I'm present everywhere equally. That's in the way of eagle, where you surround everywhere equally. Soiv kalam, makif. And then there is ziv yikore, a small ray of light, which is pnimi, the pnimius light, which is different, the way the Eibush is revealed in every place in the world. And that's the difference between the Yediyas HaMishkan and the Kalim. The Yediyas HaMishkan were pchinas makif, and the Kalim was Pchinas Pnimi. There's only Yedisa Mishkan Shabem Oya Shursa Makifim. Kedisa Beitzchaim Sheigula Mashrosam Beicholas Es Vahoyu Heichel Kodesh Kadoshim Pchinas Makifim the Gimel Reishim Mokum Nikar Kodesh Makifim Agas Kedur Shagam Makifim Yesh Yud Svidis Shvar Leil Mashin is Gamkim Mokum Machin Es Svidish Berotzen Lahatza Chochma Zo Pchinas Chochma Berotzen. And the Kalim, Kalim Shevgel Pnimi. That's where there was a Pnimi. The Yalkut Shimoni says that Omer Rabbi Yochanan. It says that when Yaakov came to his father, he smelled. Chazal say, what did he smell? He smelled Reich Boigdov. He smelled that was an unbelievable smell for those that are the Jewish backstabbers. And that's why he gave him a bracha. So Chazal asked, because he saw that Jews will have backstabbers, that's why he gave him a bracha. What's the pshat? Yaakov, in other words, had Ruach HaKodesh, and he saw there would be very bad Jews. And now that inspired us to give a bracha. So the Medrash says, yes, Kigon Yosef Meshisa, V'yokim Ish Tzeroides. Who is Yosef Meshisa? So, Shabikshu Sainim Likonas Laharis Abayis, Omni Yikonas Mehem of Hemtzila. Because they were scared to go into the base of Mikdash, they said, let a Jew, one of the Jews that were with the enemies, they said, let one of the Jews go in and desecrate the base of Mikdash first. Amrilei, they said to Yosef Meshisa, Umatat mapik de dochu. Take whatever you want. Whatever you go in, you take, it's yours. Nichnas v'hoitzim enoyre shel zof. Yeah, I'll take it. Amrulei, they said, nah, sorry. Ein darke shel hedyet lishtamish boy. Ul zman tenyunus, matat mapik de dochu. Go in a second time. Whatever you'll take the second time, that's yours. Sorry. This is way too, this is way too much. Huh?
Too expensive.
Yeah. Aloy Kippur. He didn't want to go in a second time to desecrate the Beis HaMikdash. So they said, you know what? We're going to make that all the taxes in Israel that are collected in the next 3 years, you're the tax collector. The tax goes to you. Aloy Kippur. Omar loy dai shechasti loikai pam achas achisenu pam shnia. I angered my God one time. I'm not going to anger him a second time. Ma osuloi. What did they do? Nasnu b'chamor shel charosh. They took a table, a workman's table. A woodworker has a table. Huh? A workbench. And in those days, that was like where he would have his saw on that table. They cut off one piece of his body at a time. Okay.
Dinner.
Huh? Yeah. He was screaming. He didn't say oivei. He said vai dichasti leboirek. Woes to me that I made Abishta angry. Let's stop for a second before the second story. So we see over here at Varpella. We see over here at Varpella. Koshn Tzamagit says that when when Yaakov wanted to fool his father, he wanted to do what Esav did. Esav was Said Befiv. What happened was that Esav always showed that there is big Netzutz Kedusha in him, like Vadia Ageh. Yaakov Avinu Esav showed off like Vadia Ageh. Yaakov Avinu showed off Yosef Meshisa. Yaakov said, you see, the worst of my descendants, that they walk in once the Beis HaMikdash and they walk in once and they get so taken by the Kedusha that they're changed. And he was so willing to take the pain slowly and not to make the Eibishter angry. So that's the difference, I would say, between Or Makif and Or Pnimi. Or Pnimi is a tzaddik, a person that lives his whole life like a tzaddik. Or Makif is a person that's touched by the awesome light. He doesn't understand, he doesn't know, can't explain it to you, but he's touched by the awesome surrounding light. So when Yitzchak felt this thing of Yosef Meshisa, Reach Boigdo, that these are the Boigdim, the Jewish Boigdim, but still, these are the Jews, these are the Jewish people. So that's what caused them to give the bracha. We see from here as a difference between Or Makev and Or Pnimi. Or Pnimi is like the Gemara, the Chazal say another story about Yosef ben Yezer, that his whole life he lived as a tzaddik, and his nephew, when he was being killed, Al Kiddush Hashem, his nephew said, I wasn't religious my whole life. I lived a good life. I'm still living a good life. And look, what's the end to you? So he told him, if you lived a good life so Adarab, think about it, Lamachiso, in Kain Lamachiso, Kavachem Eloiser Etzoineg.
What was your response?
He said, if you lived such a good life, what do you think the Abish is going to give for those that do his will? Obviously, they're going to live a better life. But
Why?
uh
honest.
And then
I don't talk to him.
Bachayra doesn't talk to him. And then he went and he killed himself. And the Chazal say a very, very descriptive way of how he killed himself. And then it says, Nesnamnem Yosef ben Yezer, as he's dying, Ro mitose perachas ba'avir, Omer oy l'sho kala, Kidmani zel legan Eden. He said, Oy, my nephew got to Gan Eden before me. So
Killed himself on the spot.
yeah. So the difference between Or Makif and Or Pnimi is like the difference.
You can't do that.
I don't know.
Committed suicide?
I guess, yeah.
I'll Kiddush Hashem.
I know it's a problematic that issue is a problematic thing. But a component for what we're discussing now, that's the difference. Yosef Meshisa and Yossi ben Yezer Ish Tzereida is like very different. Yosef ben Yezer Ish Tzereida was a tzaddik, so it was an Inyan of Or Pnimi. Yosef Meshisa was Or Makev. He was touched by the awesome. Did he understand? Did he know? Can he explain? He thought it was the other way around. It was fun to not be religious, and all of a sudden, he couldn't explain it. But all of a sudden, he was touched. So that's the difference of Or Makev Or Pnimi. In the Beis HaMikdash, there was both. There was the Gila of the Or Pnimi through the Menorah, through the Orah, and through the Mizbachas. The Or Makev was through the Yerias and the walls of the Beis HaMikdash.
I grew up in Yossi ben Yoezer in Mechila.
Oh, wow.
So the was.
So that's why you know the story. When I started telling you, you already knew the story. Huh? That's why you're a tzaddik. Yeah. What happened with the siyum? Yeah, Menachem Palmer said he'd make a siyum. Wrote the Mazonis for the siyum. He's going to make it on Shabbos? He said he'll come tonight.
Before the month, if you play on top, then there's a lot.
Nice koyach, Rabbi. A good Shabbos.
Good
In the meantime,
Shabbos.
yes. As he said beautifully, yes. I'll see him. Okay. Anyways, I'm
Yeah,
gonna
we'll
sign
see
off.
you
I think.
Shabbos.
Rabbi, good job. I mean, I don't know. Is there something going on Shabbos? If
Yeah,
do
we're having a
Farbrengen
big
Shabbos,
kiddush.
guys?
We're having a
All
kiddush
right.
in honor of the coming
The
of
Kiddush.
Mashiach Tzidkenu.
Well, Shabbos Chazon, right? This I know this. Of
Yes,
course,
it's
busy.
Shabbos
Okay,
Chazonim.
Amen. Right,
Reb
right.
Levi
So good Shabbos.
Yitzchak
So
is going to be here.
uh,
He'd like to see you.
yes, the
Reb
right
Levi
here.
Yitzchak is
Around
going
the
to
yard
be
side.
here in Beis Menachem Mendel. He's
I'll see
he's a
him then.
yes, he's the rabbi in residence.
Who is he? I'm playing along with you.